welcome back to our channel. I'm Callie.
And I'm Beam.
So today we're going to go through our recent reads. So we decided, since we both read a lot, as you could see from our last TBR, to break it up, and we kind of made it a competition as to whoever read the next 5, we will film a video, and no matter how many books the other person read, we'll just talk about the 5. So I won this time.
She did win this time. And this is the way we figured we could do smaller videos, so that way instead of filming like an hour and a half or 2 hour long wrap up at the end of each month, we could just do smaller ones throughout the months. You read how many books this month?
I read 6 so far.
And I've read 4. My voice is a little off right now. I am sick, but we're gonna film this anyway.
So the first book I read was To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. This was a book about following a siren who gets turned into a human against her will, so kind of a flip on the Little Mermaid concept. She has to kill a prince in order to win back her honor and become a siren again. Starts to like realize her humanity because she was taught like to just be ruthless and murder, because that's what sirens do, they murder people. But I gave this 3-ish stars. The story had such potential, but it didn't quite get there. It just, I love mermaid. It did. It fell short. There was too much fluff. There wasn't enough action for me. All the action happened at like the very, very end. Like they were on a pirate ship. I wanted them to be pirates and do piratey things, sword fights and all that. And like a lot of it is just like the prince and Lyra, who it's in both of their perspectives, like kind of just hating each other throughout the whole book. It fell a little short for me.
Sad news. The first book that I read was The Backstagers in the Theater of the Ancients by Mientus and Rian Sygh. This was an arc that was sent to me by the publisher, so thank you very much to them. And this is the second book in a series, so some of you might have heard of the Backstagers graphic novel series that's going on right now. There are 2 of those out. They're excellent. You should really go read those. This one, I loved the first book in the series. It was cute. It had like just the right amount of kind of like the romance going on. There was magic going on. This one just kind of fell short for me as well a little bit. And the reason for that, I think, is that it started off really good. And I honestly loved how they depicted insecurity in this book. It was depicted through one of our main characters is an artist, and every time he'd open his sketchbook, a voice in his head would be like, oh, you're not good enough, he doesn't deserve this. And it was very interesting how they depicted it, but unfortunately the rest of the book just felt so cliched that I just couldn't enjoy it.
This is a middle grade, right?
Yeah, this is a middle grade story, and it follows 5 boys who work backstage in a theater, and the theater is magic, so the backstage area keeps changing and they have to find the right rooms, and it's really quite fun, and I probably will continue with the series. It's just this one wasn't my favorite. So it still got a 4 out of 5 for me. Because I can't say no to these characters. They're all just so dang cute. But it's probably closer to a 3.5. So 3.5 out of 5 for me for this one.
So the next 4 books I read are actually all a part of a series, but I will give them individual ratings, because I do give them individual ratings, because they're each their own book. But I won't give any spoilers for this series, just general synopsis on what you can read on the back of the book. But I'll go just a little bit more into why I gave it its rating. So the first one in the series that I read is The Demon King by Cinda Chima. This is the first book in the 7 Realms series, which I know is an older series. It's not one of the like newer ones. I was recommended to read this series by an old coworker of mine. So this story follows Han, who is a thief, and just kind of like it's almost like a street lord. Well, he is a street lord. We also follow the Princess Ereza, so it's in their 2 perspectives, and a lot of these books are a lot about political issues. There's issues with the wizard to, there's clans, there's a lot of issues with their relationships. There was a big breaking in the world, which they call the breaking, where a wizard like essentially broke the world and screwed everything up. So the clansmen they call it the naming. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but I think it's called the naming. Put certain, like, shackles on how much power wizards can have. And the wizards of this world are unhappy about it. So there's all this political issues.
Drama.
The princess is half clan. Her mother married a clansman to help with the political issue, but now the wizards are all pissy.
Oh my goodness.
So a lot of political issues is where we start with the series. And this book I gave 3 out of 5 because it's like all world building.
Oh.
It is all world building, introduction to the characters. On the back of the book it says when Han and Reza meet, the whole plot starts. They don't meet until like 3/4 into the book. Which is like, I was just like patiently waiting and waiting and waiting. Like once the plot hit, it got me hooked, but the plot didn't start. It was a lot of just sort of getting to know our main characters and our supporting characters and understanding why there's all this drama, for lack of a better word, going on in this world.
Political drama.
It was a lot of just building up for the plot. Not building up with the plot, but for the plot.
Oh.
So this isn't my favorite in the series, but its first book, and more of a slow burn story. But overall, a 3 out of 5 for the first book.
The next book I read was The Library Book by Susan Orlean, and this is a nonfiction book that I got through Book of the Month. And this is a book about the 1986 fire at the Los Angeles Public Library. And it was very interesting. It was a very interesting nonfiction book to read, and I would recommend it for anybody who is interested in this sort of thing. So if you're on the fence about reading it, I would recommend reading it. It took an interesting approach because to this day they aren't positive about who actually caused the fire. They have a suspicion, and that's kind of what Susan Orlean goes on, is she approaches it as, this is this person's history, and then this is why they think he started the fire, but we don't know. So I thought that was kind of interesting. She also went through what the library has done in the past, like where the library came from, and what it has done for Los Angeles, and it was really quite interesting. I gave it a 4 out of 5. It was well done. It was well written, well researched. There was less about the fire itself than I thought there was going to be, but I still enjoyed it.
Book 2 of the Seven Realms series, The Exiled Queen by Cinda Chima. I give this one a 3.5. I like this one a lot better than book 1 because we're actually starting to get into the plot of the whole story. We find Han and Reza at like this realm's version of like boarding school. But this school doesn't have just like, it's like a Hogwarts mixed with, so it's like their wizard school mixed with their Templar school mixed with their soldier school. It's just the school of the world, and it's like the most prestigious school. So we find them in the school, which I think was a really good way. I always love the school angle people go for when
that
they're doing
trope.
world building, because it makes it way more interesting, because your characters that you're following are also learning the history and why everything is so shitty and why there's angst and drama. So that was I really liked this form of world building, because this one was just a lot of history of the world. It goes into the breaking that I mentioned before from book 1, which we really only heard about. It goes into how it happened, why it happened, and like different theories about it, and lost artifacts, which was really cool. And it says again on the back when Han and Reza meet again, which again, they don't meet until like halfway through the book, but they kept like almost. So I was just like, ooh, it's gonna happen. Nope. Not today. So I really liked, this is the book where I actually started to like Han. Han I didn't really care for in book 1. I was more like a Reza fan, and this one made me really like Han as a character. He had a lot of character development in this one, and what he was doing and how he was contributing to the whole plot. Book 3 of the Seven Realms series, The Grey Wolf Throne by Cinda Chima. This one I gave 4. I think of all of them, this one was my favorite. This one, shit actually started happening. This one was non-stop action. I think this book is like what everything was building up to from books 1 and 2, all of the lore. There were a lot of times where I'm like, aha, which I love getting that feeling when I'm reading a book, when I can just like almost like anticipate only like a page or two before what was gonna happen, because I like was able to like come up with my own theory and just finally be like, that's why this information was important. I obviously can't go into a lot of what happened in this book because this is the 3rd book in the series and I don't want to spoil anything, but if you have trouble reading book 1, I would highly recommend continuing. It does get better. I start to like really connect with the characters and really love them in book 2, and even more so in this book. Like, you see that drive that has been building up over the 2 books finally kind of come together in this book. And the final book of the 7 Realms series, The Crimson Crown by Cinda Williams-Child.
She literally reads an entire series.
I do.
In a row.
I do. I have 0 patience. So this is the final book of the 7 Realms series. This finale did not disappoint. I gave this book 4 stars out of 5 because, like the Grey Wolf Throne, it was all action. There was a lot more mystery in this one. So I liked that aspect. There was a lot of red herrings about, like, it made you question a lot of the characters. So this did not disappoint. It was everything I could have wanted in a finale. It answered all the questions I had been asking since book 1. It tied up all the loose ends, but it still kind of left it open. This is very kind of more on the political side, so kind of like Cruel Prince, where it's all about the politics, Game of Thrones. So if you're into those kind of books, I would recommend this series.
So the next book that I read was The Perfect Assassin by K.A. Doore. And this was a fantasy book. It's the first book in the Chronicles of Jihad, I believe is how you say it. But I absolutely loved this book. This was a great fantasy if you love assassins, if you like a touch of romance, the mystery. As long as you don't mind the bloody stuff, then this is a great book to read. This book was really interesting. The main character, his name is Amastan, or he goes by Stan. He actually doesn't want to be an assassin, but he is an assassin because he was chosen to be one. And it's kind of like an honor to be picked as this. And he's like my ideal little cinnamon roll because he's scared of like everything. he's scared of heights, he's scared of the dark, he's scared of dead things. And in this whole world, when someone dies or when someone is killed, they have a djinn that is basically their soul that is released once you die, and that soul needs to be captured and it needs to be contained. Otherwise, it will turn into this dark creature that will then go around harming and killing people. So his job as an assassin is not only to kill certain people, but to do it in a way that allows the body to be found and blessed, so that way this creature doesn't come out and start killing everyone in the village. Stan and one of his fellow assassins finds the body of one of the tribal leaders slain and hidden. So it's hidden up on a roof, so that way no one can find it. And by the time they get there, the djinn is gone. The rest of the book, they're trying to figure out who's the one who's going around and killing these people. There is a male-male romance in here, so it's really adorable. I gave this book a 4 out of 5. I highly recommend it. I cannot recommend it enough. It's one of my favorite fantasy books of the year.
So the last book that I read so far is Mirror Mirror by Calonita. 6th book in the Twisted Tale series, sponsored by Disney. All these books take the original Disney movie. So far they've only done Disney princesses. Takes one aspect of the plot and flips it on its head. Instead of poisoning the Snow White, the evil queen poisons the prince instead, which I thought was a really interesting twist. The one thing that I do really like about every single one of these books is they give more power to the princess of the story. We get a lot less of the damsel in distress vibe. We get it at the beginning, but then she kind of comes to the well, no one's coming to save me, I have to save myself, which is, I think, really cool and is being implemented in the newer Disney films, like Moana was like that, and stuff like that. So I liked this one. What I really liked about this one was that the twist, while it doesn't happen till later in the story, the entire background is woven into the story. So so she gives insight into Snow's family, how the evil queen became the evil queen, which it's told in the perspectives of Snow White and the evil queen, who we actually get a name for, which is really cool. Same with the prince, we get a name.
He's got a name.
Yeah, so we get that sort of background into the story, how the evil queen ascended to the throne and did all that. So I gave this one 4 out of 5 just because it was just a fun, quick read. Of course, I watched the movie after I read this book, and I will say the only thing that I didn't like is you don't get a lot of the dwarves.
Oh.
Yeah, it's more like focused on Snow, which I thought was cool. But yeah, that's my only kind of qualm, is there wasn't a lot of dwarves, but there were so many little homages to the original story.
So the last book that I've read as of now is actually a continuation of a series that I am reading throughout this year. I am reading Agatha Christie's Hercule Poirot series, and I am on number 9, or I just finished number 9, Lord Edgware Dies. This book I ended up giving a 4.5 to, 4.5 out of 5. A lot of the things that I'm noticing about some of the Agatha Christie books is that there is a bit of repetition in them. I am enjoying each of the stories. I don't think I've given one anything below a 4 as of yet. But this one had a bunch of unexpected turns, and I'm not going to get into much of it. The basic premise is Lord Edgware. He's kind of an ass. And then, like, his wife had been going around telling people she was going to kill him, and literally no one liked this guy. He's super rich, super powerful, and everyone's like, he's an ass. There were a bunch of twists throughout this book that I didn't expect, and that's one of the things that keeps me reading Agatha Christie books. This book was no different than that. So this one got a 4 out of 5 from me.
And that's all the books we've read so far in the month of April. These will probably just be randomly sporadic throughout each month.
Whoever reaches 5 first.
Whoever reaches 5 first. So far, I am winning.
Okay.
So feel free to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon if you want to be notified. We post every Tuesday and Friday. Comment with what you're reading this month. If you've read any of these books, if you have any recommendations, we are always welcome for recommendations. We'll leave all of our handles down below. That's it for today, and we'll see you next time. Bye!